Hello! Welcome to another video. As you can tell from the title, today we are doing a big ol' unhaul. I asked over on my Patreon what video I should prioritise putting out this week because I had a few ideas and a big ol' unhaul was the winner of that poll, so that's what I'm here to do. If you fancy joining my Patreon, now that I've mentioned it, convenient place to plug, I'll leave a link to that down below, but no pressure at all. Still feel a bit weird about that. But yeah, I'm doing a big old unhaul. It is my birthday on Monday and I have a big stack of parcels and I imagine that most of those are going to be books, so I needed to make some space on my shelves. So the best way to do that is to unhaul a shit ton of them. So that's what we're doing. I have 20 books here that I'm unhauling. I kept kind of upping it. I was like, alright, I've got 10. Let's up it to 15. Got to 15. Ooh, a few more. Got it to 18. I was like, come on, 2 more. 20. Yeah. So, 20 books to unhaul. Let's not, dally around. Let's get straight into the action, shall we? So the first book I have here shouldn't be too much of a surprise, and that is The Princess Saves Herself in This One by Amanda Lovelace. I did a vlog where I read outside of my reading tastes for a week, and this was one of the books that I read during that week, and I only gave it 2 stars. It really wasn't for me. I'm never going to reread it. I have no attachment to it whatsoever, so it's a pretty easy decision to pass this one on. So getting rid of this one. In a similar vein, another book that I read that week that I have no desire to hold on to is Giant Days by Non Pratt. This is the novelisation by Non Pratt of the comic series. I love the comic series, but I have absolutely no desire to keep hold of the book version of this. It didn't do anything for me. If anything, it ruined it a bit for me, so I have no desire to keep hold of this. It is a shame on this one because it is actually signed and personalised, but I have no attachment to the author or this book, so I will be passing this one along as well. Next up is a book that I think I had for studying purposes in college and held on to because it's well loved, but that is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. This is the Vintage Classics edition. I like the story enough, I just don't think I will ever reread it, and it's one of those books that just sits on my shelf and sits on my shelf and sits on my shelf because I have no desire to reread it, and it's not a story I'm like massively sentimental over or attached to, so it's another one that will just go. Next up, I have Frostblood by Ellie Blake. I read this book a long time ago, and I think I gave it 3 stars. I think I liked it, but didn't love it. Like, I didn't hate it, didn't love it. I liked it enough. I then read Fireblood by Ellie Blake, and it just made me cringe, and I really wasn't into this one too much. And I have Nightblood, but I really have no desire to finish this series, so I'm actually going to get rid of all of these. If someone wants to tell me how it ends, feel free. But yeah, I'm not going to read it myself. So this trilogy is going as well. It's also always wound me up how I've got 2 of the like big paperbacks and then 1 little one. Like, why was that necessary? But yeah, getting rid of all of these. Next up, I have Grimm Tales by Philip Pullman. These are Grimm fairy tale retellings. It's all short stories of like classic fairy tales with the Grimm twist, although most of them are Grimm to start with. I don't like short stories and have no desire to actually read this. This is one that I bought a long time ago. This is one that I got before BookTube and was always like, oh, if I'm ever in the mood for a like fairy tale short story thing, then I'll read it, and I never have. I don't like short stories either. It's something that I'm becoming more aware of. I'm definitely willing to try them, but I think I would have to try them from authors that I really love, and Philip Pullman isn't one of those, so this one's gotta go. Next up, we have The Devouring Gray by Christine Lynn Herman. I started this, believe it or not. I don't know if I ever actually mentioned it, but I did start this book, and never got very far, put it down, and have no desire to pick it up again. I'm kind of upset by that because it's for fans of the Raven Boys and Stranger Things. I'm not into Stranger Things, and I love the Raven Boys, but didn't care for what I read of this and really just have no desire to pick it back up again. Like, I haven't got any feelings on it, really, unfortunately. But I gave it a go and it just didn't captivate me at all. And do we have time to read books that we aren't feeling strongly about and are okay to just move on from? That's fine, you know, it's all good. So this one, unfortunately, is going as well. And next up we have The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. I bought this one because it's a small sci-fi about a lonely girl out in space, and that sounded interesting. And then someone told me that this is way more like soppy romance than anything that would be of interest to me. So that's gonna be a no from me. I don't even want to give it a go because I don't think I will like it. People have told me that I probably won't like it because it's too romancy for me, who is someone who doesn't read a lot of romance, because I don't like it. Like, I don't like it when the romance overshadows the rest of the plot, and I feel like that's what this does, and that's not for me. I get that it definitely is for some people. If some people love romance books and want like a hint of sci-fi, then I totally get this, but I would want it the other way around, and I don't think that's what I would get from this book, so unfortunately, it's gotta go. Next up we have Girls Made of Snow and Glass by Melissa Bashardoust. I didn't hate this, but I didn't love this. I read this for Polathon a couple of years ago. I think it was the first Polathon I read this for, and I did read it in a day, but that's because I was forcing myself to, because it was Polathon. It did not captivate my attention very much. I remember being very distracted, and it's not a story I adored. I have no desire to reread this ever. It's a beautiful book. I do love the cover, and it is also floppy, but I'm nowhere near attached enough to the book to keep hold of it just for its aesthetic purposes, like, especially now that I've read it and know that I don't love it. So yeah, unfortunately it's gotta go. It's an interesting concept though. It's a Snow White retelling, but like feminist, and Snow and the Evil Queen are like doomed to be rivals, but like, are they? Is there a way they can get around that? It was interesting, but it just didn't captivate me, unfortunately, so time to say goodbye to this one. Next up is Circle of Shadows by Evelyn Skye. This is the beautiful Fairy Loot edition, and like, I'm kind of sad because that like purple is all so beautiful. But I read this, I wanted to love it because it's written by Evelyn Skye, who wrote The Crown's Game, which I did really love, but this just disappointed me in so many ways. I didn't like the story or the characters. I think I ended up giving this one 2 stars. It just let me down in so many ways, and I know there is a sequel to it, but I have no desire to read it at all because this let me down, so I don't have any hopes for the sequel to do anything better for me. So this unfortunately was a miss, and therefore I will be unhauling. If you're not familiar with what this is about a young girl who has some sort of like gift for fighting or being an assassin or something. Sora can move as silently as a ghost, hurl throwing stars with lethal accuracy. She's an apprentice warrior marked by the gods to be trained in magic and the fighting arts to protect the kingdom. So she's special, she's like kick-ass, but it let me down so massively, unfortunately, so it's gone. Next up, we have The State of Sorrow by Melinda Salisbury. This is an adorable little hardback, very cute. I started this one a long time ago, and it's one of those books that I started, DNF'd, put down, never got back to, and I'm realising that, like, if I need to clear out space on my shelf, am I ever going to get back to this? I would have to start it from the beginning again, because I can't remember enough, and am I that fussed about getting back to it when I have so many other books on my shelves that I'm way more excited about reading for the first time than I am about returning to this one after I DNF'd it? So yeah, this one is gonna go. This is about a girl called Sorrow, because all she brings the kingdom is sorrow, and her brother is dead, but then like she sees a ghost of him or someone. Yes, her brother died before she was born, but one ghost won't stop haunting her. I'm just not fussed about it. It's all very like sad and dreary because the place that Sorrow is she a princess? I think she's a princess. She governs the court of tears, covering for her grief-maddened father. Like, it's all just very dreary. I'm not interested in this. And again, I know there's a sequel to this, but I'm not interested in that either. So this one is also going in the unhaul pile. Next up, we have A Court of Wings and Ruin. Now, don't poop your pants. I'm only getting rid of this because it's a duplicate. I have 3 copies of it and I don't need 3 copies of it. So this extra paperback is going. Who needs 3 copies of it? Not me. Not when 2 of them are exactly the same. Like, if it was 3 special edition copies, sure. But I have 2 ordinary paperbacks and 1 hardback. Like, I don't need 2 ordinary paperbacks, so it's going. Next up, I am finally biting the bullet and saying goodbye to Zenith by Sasha Alsberg and Lindsay Cummings. I bought this, there was loads of like negative hype around it, and I kind of was like, I want to give it a go just to see why everyone's bashing it so badly, but that desire has passed. Everyone bashed it. I don't expect to enjoy it. And the like ammunition I had to read it just to check that people were like rightfully bashing it is gone. I don't care anymore. So yeah, there are plenty of other sci-fis that I'm way more interested in than this one. So unfortunately, Zenith is out the door. Next up is one that I'm a little sad to see go, but like, if I'm clearing space, it's gotta go. And that is It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini. This was one of my absolute favourite books back in high school. I loved this. I read it a few times. It really was special to me back then, but I have not reread it since, and I now know that I'm not into contemporaries. I probably never will read it again, but if I did, I don't think I would enjoy it as much, so I just don't want that to happen, so I would rather be happy to never read it again, be happy with the memories that it serves me, and make room for my new reading tastes on my shelf. So no hard feelings towards this book. It was very special to me back in high school, but yeah, I'm not going to reread it and don't want to taint that memory. Realising I'm really bad at like telling you what these books are about, but this book was about a boy, or is still about, a boy called Craig who wants to kill himself. So trigger warnings for that. There's a lot of trigger warnings that should probably go alongside this, but Craig admits himself into a hospital because he wants to kill himself, and he meets some incredible people whilst he's there. There's that. Next up is a similar story, and that is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. I read this when I was pretty fresh on BookTube. I liked it when I read it, but I now know my taste a lot better and think if I read it again, I would not like it as much. I can already look back on bits that I remember from it and think, why did I enjoy that? That's so not me. So I'm never going to read it again. I don't need to taint that memory and ruin it for myself. So I'm just going to say goodbye to it before ruining it. But yeah, this one is about a girl called Eliza who writes an online comic which is incredibly famous, but no one knows that it's her, and then she meets a fan of this online comic, and it's kind of a romance story, but it's also really sad. So trigger warnings again for this one for suicide, depression related things. Next up is, I think, the only middle grade I've got today, which is The Shadows of Winterspell by Amy Wilson. This is one that I read for Polathon this year. I think I did. Unfortunately, it just really disappointed me. I wanted to love this so much, and I really didn't. I didn't care for the story. I didn't really care for the atmosphere too much. It wasn't magical enough for me at all, so it's gonna be a no from me. But this one is about a young girl called Stella who knows she's magic, knows she comes from a magic family, and is desperate to escape that and lead a normal life because she wants to be with normal kids, etc. But when she goes to a normal school, she figures out that perhaps it's not as normal as she thought, and the magic kind of follows her, and she gets entangled in a fairy Curse. Next up we have To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. This is one I read recently. I think I read it for the Owls, I think. It's one that I had DNF'd previously and then actually did get round to finishing and reading properly, but I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I definitely didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to, but I didn't love it, and the reality is that I am never going to reread this, so it's gonna go. It's one that I'm definitely not attached to. It's a standalone, so I don't want to like hold on to it for its sequel's sake, if you know what I mean. So yeah, this one's gonna go as well. But this one is about a prince and a siren whose kind of destiny for each of them is to kill the other. The siren wants to kill the prince wants to kill the siren, but you know, it's a YA fantasy, so you know it doesn't go like that, and you know they fall in love. So there's that. Next up is one that I just know I'm never going to read and have absolutely no desire to, and that is The Beautiful by Renee Ahdieh. I've read one Renee Ahdieh book before and I really didn't like it, and I have no desire to read anything else from her. This one is, I think, murder mystery meets vampires? New Orleans, 1872, the city ruled by the dead. So, New Orleans being ruled by vampires. It's just really not my cup of tea, and I know I'm never going to get around to reading it, so I'm just going to clear some space and say goodbye to it. And then finally, the last book I have to unhaul for you today is Munchausen by PC Cast. I've had this book for so long and I've held on to it for so long because it's beautiful, and I never wanted to get rid of it because it's beautiful. That cover is just gorgeous, but it has got these awful deckled edges, which I hate because it's just impractical to read. I don't know much about what this is about. Every time I think about it, I think I don't even know what it's about. I know it's part of a huge series. It's quite a chunker by itself. That's not a dedication I want to make. I haven't heard anyone really talk about it, anything good, anything bad. I'm never gonna read it. I've had it for years. We're talking like 3 years now, and I haven't picked it up, so am I ever going to? Really? I just need to face the reality that I'm not, because there are so many other books that I'm way more interested in than this one, and I'm just holding on to it because it's beautiful, and it actually takes up a lot of space because it's huge. So, goodbye, beautiful wolfy book with shiny rainbows. Ugh, breaks my heart just a little bit to be getting rid of that one. But there we go. There's the 20 books that I am unhauling to hopefully make room for that lot when I open it. But yeah, that's that. If you have any opinions on anything that I'm getting rid of and just want to let me know, then feel free to do so down below. Please try to refrain from telling me to keep them because I don't have the space. So yeah. But I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, give us a thumbs up, chat to me down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!